Today, we're talking about a revolutionary new way to fight diseases like ALS. It's a technology that acts like a tiny microscopic editor, going right inside our cells to fix the little mistakes that can cause so much trouble. So let's dive right in. Let's start with a really big question, because it gets right to the heart of what we're talking about. You can think of your body as running on a massive, complicated set of instructions, like a giant recipe book. But what happens if there's a typo in a really, really important recipe?
And that's exactly where antisense therapy comes in. This isn't just about managing symptoms. This is a kind of precision medicine that uses these custom-designed molecules. They're called antisense oligonucleotides, or just ASOs for short, to go straight to the source of the problem and fix that typo.
So in a lot of ALS cases, the problem is pretty clear. A faulty genetic instruction, that typo we talk about, leads to the creation of toxic proteins. These nasty proteins then build up and start damaging the nerve cells that control our muscles. The whole goal of antisense therapy is to get in there and stop that bad message before the toxic protein ever gets made.
So how does this tiny little editor actually get in there and fix the body's recipe? Let's break it down. It really happens in 4 key steps. First up, scientists have to find the exact faulty message, which is a molecule called RNA. Then they design a custom ASO that's a perfect match for it. Think of it like a key designed for one very specific lock. After that, this ASO has to be delivered to the central nervous system, where it can finally find its target and get to work correcting the mistake.
And how does it correct the mistake? Well, it has 2 main strategies. The first is called knockdown, which is basically a search and destroy mission. The ASO finds the bad RNA message and just eliminates it. Poof, gone. The second way is splice modulating, which is a little more like a proofreader. It finds a garbled, confusing message and helps the cell read it correctly so a good, healthy protein gets made instead. Now, here's something that is absolutely critical to understand. ALS isn't just one thing. About 10% of cases are what we call familial, meaning they're directly linked to genes passed down in a family. But the other 90%, that's sporadic, where there's no clear genetic cause. And that difference is huge when it comes to developing treatments. For that 10% of people with familial ALS, scientists have been able to zero in on the specific genetic culprits, like the SOD1 gene or C9 or 72. And because they know the exact target, they can design these super-specific ASO drugs to go after the problem. This is exactly where we've seen the biggest breakthroughs so far.
Okay, so this all sounds incredible in theory, right? But how does it actually get from a concept in a lab into a real treatment for a real person? Well, let's take a look at the pioneers who are making this happen.
This isn't the work of just one company. It's a whole ecosystem of innovators. You've got pioneers like Ionis Pharma, who've been working on this ASO technology for decades. They partner with giants like Biogen to run the huge clinical trials needed for approval. And then you have other brilliant companies like Denali working on making delivery easier, and companies like Tracen and Corrales who are focused on developing therapies for that much larger sporadic ALS population. And listen, this is not science fiction anymore. In 2023, we saw a truly massive milestone. The FDA gave accelerated approval to the very first antisense therapy for ALS. It's called Qalsody, and it's for patients who have ALS caused by that SOD1 gene mutation. This was a huge, huge deal. So why was it approved? Well, the data was just powerful. The drug was shown to slash a key marker of nerve damage, it's called neurofilament light, by up to 60%. I mean, think about that. It was a clear, measurable sign that the therapy was actually hitting its target and slowing down the damage. But it's not just about the data and the biomarkers. It's about the real human impact. This quote here from the trials of another ASO drug just says it all. For a disease that has been defined by a steady decline, to hear the words unprecedented recoveries, it's just incredible. It gives so much hope. So, with all of this amazing news, we have to stay grounded. We need a bit of a reality check, because the road ahead is not perfectly smooth. There are still some pretty big hurdles to clear. Yeah, the challenges are very real. Right now, delivering these drugs usually means invasive spinal injections. They're also incredibly expensive, and so far, the biggest wins have been for a small slice of the ALS population with specific gene mutations. We also still have a lot to learn about any long-term effects, and we need to figure out how to make sure everyone who needs these treatments can actually get them. So, what's next? What's on the horizon?
because you can bet that researchers are already working like crazy to tackle every single one of those challenges.
And the future looks incredibly exciting. The next wave is all about making these therapies even better. Think about easier delivery methods, like a simple IV injection. Think about ASOs designed to help the other 90% of people with sporadic ALS. And maybe most exciting of all, think about using this technology to prevent the disease in people with a known genetic risk before they even show symptoms. That's a true game changer.
And all of this leads to one final massive question. What we're seeing with antisense therapy in ALS is absolutely groundbreaking. But is this technology, this core idea of a tiny, precise editor that fixes our body's instructions at the source, is this the blueprint? Could what we're learning right now in the fight against ALS one day rewrite the story for countless other genetic diseases? It's a pretty amazing thought.